all you literary legends and luminaries. I'm Julie and welcome to Booksmart. Today's book is a memoir called Ambition Monster by Jennifer Romolini. This is one of those books that started out slow and even a bit confusing, but about halfway through it hooks you. So Ambition Monster was one of those books I picked up and put down several times at Barnes & Noble. Then I found it at my used bookstore where I also picked it up and put it down several times. I loved the pink and green cover, but was a bit hesitant because this is one of those New York memoirs. If you haven't watched Booksmart before, well, I'm a little bit jaded by all the memoirs by New Yorkers. I realize New York is the publishing capital of the world, but can we publish more non-New Yorkers since most of the country doesn't live in New York? Romolini eventually ends up in California, but still it's New York. On my most recent trip to my local used bookstore, I finally bought Ambition Monster and read it shortly thereafter. I'm one of those people that thinks the universe talks to me through the books I read, and when and why I read a book, and there's a reason behind it. And Ambition Monster fell right into place for me. Jennifer Romolini writes about her workaholism, how she worked up the corporate ladder in the world of magazine publishing and websites and whatnot, and how that eventually broke her. Perfectionism and ambition are key themes in the book. But I struggled with the beginning because she wasn't the least bit ambitious. Do not go into this book thinking you are going to read about someone like Sylvia Plath, who knew from an early age exactly what she wanted to be when she grew up, or someone like Madonna, whose creative energy and vision coupled with her ambition turned her into the megastar she is today. Romolini's childhood and early adulthood have there's no ambition at all. I spent the first half of the book completely confused as to why the title was called Ambition Monster. Like so many quote-unquote memoirs, Ambition Memoir isn't a memoir, but an autobiography. It's essentially Romolini's life story, which is too bad because when she starts in on what the theme should have been, it could have been one of the best memoirs I've read in a while. But by covering her whole life, it lost much of its possibilities. Yes, Romolini's abusive childhood shapes her into who she becomes as an adult, but there's a lack of connection to theme. It's just one story after another that leaves you wondering what's the glue that's holding the story together. She's anything but ambitious as a child and practically flunks out of school. We get glimpses of this ambition, but it's certainly not a monster yet. Here is an inkling of it when Romolini is in high school, and we get just a little fragment of about what is happening. How do we know what to dream? Where does ambition first spark? What defines want? In my real life at home, I have little reference for the life I want, but I'm beginning to see what I don't. The suffocation of suburban, heteronormative domesticity, the constant sweeping of the kitchen floor, the obsessive wiping of fingerprints, the monitoring of dishwasher cycles, the built-up resentment in a house where the person working hoards the freedom and you do all the work. All of it feels too small, caged in. I want a bigger field on which to play. But instead of focusing on that, you then get to read about one tedious relationship after another, which add little to the theme. What's worse is she sacrificed parts that should be developed, like an anxiety-related stomach issue that brings her to the ER, something she just mentions, for the overblown details of relationships that don't seem to be connected to any theme. Even her first marriage and the miscarriage she suffered didn't appear to fit into this theme of ambition monster, at least with the way Romolini writes about it. But once she starts working for magazines and the girl boss trend, then the book picks up speed. Yet Romolini still doesn't develop enough about such issues as the girl boss is just as toxic as the boy boss, that the expectations of jobs rarely aligns with pay, that hard work only gets you so far, even the neglect of your children to advance your career. All these topics Romolini writes about, but she doesn't spend any space adequately developing such issues. Romolini's magazine background shows itself in her writing style. She packs in more concrete details in a sentence than one would think imaginable. You can also see her fashion magazine background as she pounds name brands and styles into these dense sentences. I prefer a more poetic, lyrical writing style, but her bang, bang, bang sentence structure worked well with the ambitious and workaholic theme. Perfectionism speckles its way throughout the book. As much as I love the green and pink combination, I have to show you the formatting of the book, which kind of drove me crazy. As ridiculous as it sounds, this was one of the reasons I didn't buy the book. Can you see the extra space between paragraphs, that the space between the paragraphs is bigger than the space within paragraphs. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I could tell and it just drove me crazy. It's like someone didn't check the box in Word about not adding space between paragraphs of the same style. Perfectionism at its worst, people. Formatting snafus aside, Romolini touches on topics that don't always get written about. So here's a part I understood so well, especially as a hard worker and a perfectionist. Romolini is describing one of her magazine editor positions and how so many around her are lazy, bend the system, and get away with it. And so let me read you this part when she has sent an entitled junior editor an email stating all that this junior editor failed to do. And the junior editor left work early to fly to St. Tropez. It backfires in Romolini's face when the junior editor goes to Romolini's superior to complain about how scary Romolini is, and then she's the one that gets in trouble. Romolini actually is the one that gets in trouble. So let me read you this because, it was so relatable. I'm called in later to give my side of the story, but it's clear my side doesn't matter. I'm confrontational in a world where people don't confront. A street fighter in a ladies' auxiliary club. I've already lost. I receive a stern warning for this managerial overstep and am told if I want to keep my job, my behavior needs to change. Though she's not the one who delivers the message, Kim signs off on the reprimand. I'm crushed. The scolding hits me hard. I rage cry about it all day, in the office, bathroom, on the train after work, at home, chopping kale. I'm furious that someone is getting away with something, but more than that, I'm humiliated that I got in trouble. I can't make it make sense. I work as hard as, if not harder than, almost anyone else in that office. I put effort into looking and acting the part of the job, but no matter how I bend, I can't make myself fit. The issue is coming up more and more. I expect work to be a meritocracy. I demand that someone listen when it is not. Bingo. So I'm just a teacher at a juvenile detention center, but I've been there, and that is exactly my attitude. I really have nowhere to be promoted to, but that's not the point. The others I worked with get away with everything, yet I was held to a higher standard, expected to work more and attend more meetings for whatever reason. Half the time, the other teacher didn't even show up. I struggled with that for years. These are the parts I wish Romolini would develop more. This is one of the topics that needs more discussing. Romolini gives us an inside look into the entertainment world, how the last thing celebrities want to talk about is fashion. It's also interesting to read how many people seem generally miserable, even though they appear to have everything. That in itself is eye-opening. Based on the front, I thought the book would be funny, because on the cover, some other writer said it's hilarious as it is heart-wrenching. I'm sorry, but I wasn't laughing at all, and I giggle at the stupidest things, so I feel like I'm missing something here. Maybe it's only funny if you know the inside jokes, because you too are from New York or California? I don't know. But the book spoke to me in a very strange way. I'm Romolini's age. I think she might just be a couple years older than I am. As she wrote about this hyperactive office structure, working over 12 hours a day, barely sleeping, playing the fancy social games of fancy parties and pot smoking with celebrities, I cringed, which, believe it or not, was actually a good thing. I've reached that point in my life where you take a look back and wonder how your life could have turned out differently if you didn't make safe choices, if you went after your dreams from day one, if you would have chosen a different career path. And now I realize I would have never survived such a world. I used to think I would have, but I know I wouldn't have. I'm too introverted. I don't have it in me to follow the crowd and the trends. I just can't play those corporate games. I can't even do that where I teach now. I wouldn't have lasted at all. Even where I teach, there's a reason I like teaching at JDC, because I'm left all alone. I don't have to deal with school district drama, and I could be as creative as I want when I get to teach every single English class. Nobody cares. I have no one to show off for. That means no accolades either, but I'm fine with it. My creativity and passion when I teach such material to students is what I care about most. And when I go home at night, I can follow my writing dreams because I haven't wasted my energy fighting a broken system. I used to come home wanting to cry many nights, but I've learned my lesson over the years. And these are the lessons that Romolini learns as her story comes to a close, as she loses her voice, literally, and is forced to recover, which means she must relax and smell the roses without using her voice. Here's her realization that comes towards the end, yet it's something I wish she would have written sooner, something that needs to be developed much more in the book, because it's a lesson most of us don't truly learn until we are older. People talk a lot about burnout, especially in recent years, especially after we've lived through years of a plague in a country with few social safety nets, a pandemic that left most everyone outside of the 1% traumatized, abandoned by our country's current brand of billionaires take all capitalism. When we talk about burnout, we most often discuss feelings of overwhelm, the physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that occurs after periods of overwork and excessive stress, how we become numb, unable to achieve or even dream of what future achievements could be. But we less often talk about burnout in terms of grief. The grief for what you thought your career could be, what you thought you could be. The grief for the time you'll never get back. The grief for having given yourself over to something unworthy of you. The grief that springs from cruelty and mishandling of never being given as good as you gave. The sadness that comes from reaching the top of a summit you'd set your sights on, only to get there and feel, is this all that there is? Let that settle in. The grief is real on so many levels. I don't think this sort of grief only happens when you lose your job. I think it happens when you realize that your expectations and hard work were not always worth it. You were playing the wrong game and all the time you wasted. I've been there not too long ago, despite not having a high corporate New York world job. And this is why I wish Romolini would have stayed in this moment much longer, because it's not about where you work or what job you have. It's the realization that there's so much more to life, and we waste so much time and energy on things that don't really matter. That success is difficult to measure because it's not just about promotions and salary increases. It's about how we feel in the long run. It's about how we use our time, our priorities, how we're treated by others, especially in the workplace. It's our life at the end of the day when we come home from work and what we bring home with us. It's not papers to grade or articles to edit or a defense strategy to write. It's the energy that we've used up. How much of it did we waste? If we're lucky, our work actually gives us energy, inspires us, rather than take everything from us like a vampire. Like with most of the topics in Ambition Monster, Romolini needed to stay there longer to explore such issues as ambition and perfectionism and workaholism and success. Ambition Monster had so much potential. I'm glad I read it, but I was disappointed that it was just another autobiography rather than a memoir that really addresses workplace perfectionism, the concept of success, and the lessons that we learn way too late in life. Thanks for watching. As always, my goal at Booksmart is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.